Oh, baby. Welcome to SFL Free Agent Frenzy, live here on the SFL's YouTube channel. Our round table is as big of a table as you can get. What a panel we have here today. As we get started on free agency, we actually have no free agent contracts process. It will all be live, and it will be here right now over the next 2 hours. Chat shoutouts, Rich Pratchard, Legion of Gaming, Joshua Williams, Carolina Skyhawks, Tom Rahman, Harish Prasad, John Trusman, Ryan F., Hype the Earth, Rochelle Colston, Houston Hyenas, Fort Worth Toros, Ryan Owens, and so much more. On the show with us right now in the round table, we'll start over on the far left. Cade Stevens. How you doing, Cade?
Hey, Cam, doing good, man. Glad to be here. It's been a bit since we've had a chance to have a little chitty-chatty, but happy to be here for some first reactions, big news, and share the table with a lot of other fine gentlemen.
I heard someone is coming out of retirement.
You might have to just wait and see that news when it happens.
We'll see if it drops today. Or, well, actually, why don't you, since I had you on mute, Cade, why don't you welcome yourself to the show again?
Oh, well, since I was muted, I'm really happy to be here. Cam, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be by your side once again. The championship game for this past season was a ton of fun, and I think that we shared the table today with a bunch of fine gentlemen. Indeed, a lot of fun opinions, but thanks for having me on.
And as I said, I heard you were coming out of retirement.
There's rumors around about that, and I think I'd like to save the news for when it officially comes across the board.
And we'll see when we get that. Your best friend, E.K. Vincent, also here with us. Eric Vincent, how are you?
Great, Cam. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I heard you might have a new team as well today, but we'll see when that all comes down the wire.
Yes, lots of teams hitting me up in the DMs over the course of my free agency courting, and definitely want to thank all those fine people that reached out to me. Louisiana Revolution had me in for an official visit as well. If you can check that out on their Twitter page, be sure to do that. And I'm looking forward to reactions for all these guys.
Director of Compliance, Mark Hurwitz, is on the show on the round table. How are you, Mark?
I'm great, Cam. You know, this is being a rookie, my free agent frenzy, so looking forward to it. And who goes where? We have a shift power.
Mark fell out a little bit. We'll come back to him. Robert Garrett Jr. is with us. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to a fun day of free agency and see who goes where.
Menace on the defensive line for the defending champion Atlanta Swarm. Joshua Williams is here. How you doing, Josh?
I'm pretty good. Just waiting and eager to see where everybody goes.
How about Chicago's fullback extraordinaire, Mikey Improta? How are you doing?
Yeah, buddy. I'm good, Cam. I'm excited to be here. There's quite a few big-time free agents out there. I'm ready to see where they land. I'm excited who makes the biggest splash.
This definitely is the most hype that I can remember for a free agency. So, but I mean, when you got,
I'm pretty good.
When you have over two,
eager to see where everybody goes.
How about Chicago's fullback extraordinaire?
Goodness.
Oh, I was wondering why I had an echo. It just YouTube hijacked me there for a minute. We've had more hype for this free agency show than I think we ever have before, and that's what happens when you have over 2,000 Discord members and over 100 watching right now, right, Mikey?
Oh man, this where else would you rather be, Cam? The SFL, it makes people's dreams come true. It adds excitement to get away from the real world life drama, and it just adds so much more fun to everything that you do in life. I love it.
And the owner of the Arizona Scorpions, Eddie Gage, is with us. How you doing, Eddie?
Cam, it's been a long time since I said this, but what up, though? I'm excited to be here. Can't wait to see who's going where. I made a couple of phone calls to some players myself that went unanswered, or I was flat out rejected. So I want to see what teams these guys fall to.
All right, so we've got a huge panel here with us here today, and our first breaking news signing is in. While I go through that, let me send it over to Joshua of the defending champion Atlanta Swarm. What are you most interested in finding out today, whether it be this morning or this evening?
Looking to see where a couple of defensive players go. Especially the Revolution, some of the newer teams that are in. Interested to see how the defenses fill out.
And what about you, Mark?
Well, I'm interested to see where Mr. Pickler goes. There's a lot of speculation out there on the board, and also the wide receivers for the defending Atlanta Swarm. Where are they going?
Our first announcement here today is concerning the kicker of the Chicago Wildcats, Anthony Cece. Mikey, Anthony's leaving Chicago?
Yeah, well, sometimes these guys, they want to check out the free agency waters and see if they can swim and, maybe kind of get into the unprecedented areas, the uncharted areas of the SFL. And that's the beauty of the league, Cam. As you know, it's not the teams that create the journey, it's the players. And if they want to go in a different direction, then they have the freedom to do that.
Well, Anthony Cece's old team, the Chicago Wildcats, his new team is the Jacksonville Kings. Anthony going down to the coast to play in Jacksonville, and I believe it's Jacksonville's first star kicker, maybe in team history. Haven't seen a lot of big kickers coming out of Jacksonville, but your initial thoughts, Eric Vincent, to the signing for the Kings?
This is a good addition. Jacksonville, I think they need that star kicker there. Definitely some opportunities there to add 3 points on the board that didn't necessarily go their way. And how could you not want to play for Dirty Duval?
Yeah, I figured you might like that signing from considering Jacksonville and all that.
Oh yeah, of course. How could you not? I mean, it's Jacksonville.
Okay,
first coast, baby.
The other Jacksonville man. Any thoughts to the Kings bringing in Cece?
Yeah, I mean, Cece, great signing for the Jacksonville Kings. As you mentioned, believe their first star kicker, first season in Jacksonville last year, managed to work their way into the playoffs. And having a star kicker is a good way to find a way to edge out in some of those close games, and that could be a nice little jump there for Jacksonville in the rankings in this coming season. And as Eric said, I mean, come on, man, how could you not want to go to Duval?
Houston Hyenas in the chat saying CC turned me down as well. Can't wait to bust his head on game day. Yikes. That's when the commissioner looks over at the schedule and sees if Houston and Jacksonville play this year. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. We've got a lot of big free agents on the table, and as we go through things here today, we're kind of getting set. We've had almost 40 transactions come through. So forgive me if I'm just a bit scatterbrained. The DMs are going ballistic, and we're trying to all keep it together. We mentioned Johnny Pickler earlier, as somebody did, and I think it was Mark. But I actually spoke with Johnny before the show. Johnny says, I asked him, is there a reason why I haven't seen a contract? And he says, I still don't know where I'm going. So that's a little bit of breaking news that Pickler's still undecided, trying to figure out exactly what he's going to do. He could obviously go back to St. Louis as well. St. Louis still without a quarterback signed, so you never know, he could return. So that's interesting. Eddie, any thoughts? You have your quarterback in Ashley Jackson. Any thoughts to Pickler being undecided at this point?
Honestly, Cam, I won't say I'm shocked. I mean, he wants to take his time. Obviously, he's a hot commodity coming off of a great season in which he's probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, he brings press to the team, wherever the direction he decides to go, whether it's good or bad. You know, they always say good press or bad press is always good regardless. So, I have my speculations about where he's going to go. I mean, he could go home. He's from Chicago. Maybe he can team up with Shan and push E.T. King out the door. I don't know. Or maybe he goes and follows Gerald to Louisiana. I mean, him and Gerald had a great relationship throughout the season, so perhaps he goes with him there. Does he stay in St. Louis? Who knows? I mean, maybe that's the hard part about it for Johnny right now, walking away from St. Louis, the team he's called home this past season, and you know they welcome him with open arms. Or my dark horse in this camp, Marcus Dunhill, recently retired, world champion, promoted to the front office. Atlanta is in need of a quarterback. They don't want to rebuild. Or do they draft a rookie? We don't know.
That's spicy.
But Pickler is out there. That's my guess.
That is spicy. Hey, breaking news now. We've got, of course, Anthony Cece there, but let me get this off the screen. There we go. We've got some news on Gabriel Manning. Gabriel Manning, always known as one of the largest contracts in the SFL, and I don't know that anybody really has any sort of beat on where where Gabriel Manning might be going, but his contract is in. Anyone want to take a stab on this panel?
I will, Cam, if no one else will.
All right, give it to me, Eddie.
I've been thinking about this for quite some time. And my guess is he's, for the first time in forever, he's going to take a small pay cut, somewhere around the 105 range, 110 range, and he ends up signing with Louisiana. That's my guess.
Anybody else have any predictions before we unveil the team? Hey, Eddie's right. Bit of a small pay cut. Value on Gabriel Manning is... let me get the number here. 111.47.
Okay. All right. If I had to wager a guess, because I know his first team was San Francisco with the Sharks. Maybe he'll stay on the West Coast. We've got our first West Coast team out there in some time.
Portland, yeah.
Portland, yes. So maybe he'll be the star wideout for the Fleet. Who knows?
Few guesses for Queen City. There was a Mexico City guess, a Lone Star guess, Portland guess in the chat. Guess what? Everyone's wrong. Gabriel Manning is a Tulsa desperado. And think about how much sense this makes. Deacon Nickens, the gunslinger, sets a SFL record for interceptions, but all those passes deep down the field weren't going to Gabriel Manning in Proto. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, a 111, he certainly gets paid. It's no shortage of money when it comes to Manning. But I just don't understand it, Cam. Last year, his numbers regressed. Only 52 catches on 100 targets. I know he had 8 touchdowns, but 52 for 591, I think he's making a lot of money. He needs to put up more numbers in my mind.
Look at the chat reactions. Everybody with the wows.
Those are gold.
My goodness. Tulsa really, I mean, this is a splash to start the the frenzy move. We got things going with a kicker. Kickers are people too. But Robert Garrett, you were on London. Are you surprised by this?
Yeah, it was kind of a shocker to me. I was kind of riding the train. I thought maybe Mexico City or Queen City losing Stephen Hacker. Tulsa definitely caught me off guard, but it's interesting, as you said, with Deacon Nickens, now that he has a solid number one target, somebody he can throw to if he can flip the script from this past season.
All right, as we prepare our next breaking news here that we've got behind the scenes, let's go back to Mark Hurwitz and just get his thoughts on the day and how's Director of Compliance going.
Oh, well, thanks, Cam. It's going pretty well. It's pretty awesome to see that I made the announcement. The discussions in chat seem to be a little friendlier, so that's pretty nice. This is being a rookie. This is my first year participating in this, so I'm waiting to get drafted later on in June. But it's pretty cool just to see where all these guys are going, and the comments chat are absolute gold. So having a great time so far.
Next player signing is here. It is Anthony Wyo, formerly of the Jacksonville Kings. He will be playing in season 15. And I send it over to, let's go to Cade. You guys called the Jacksonville-Vancouver Wild overtime playoff game. Anthony Wyo, a big part of that, but Wyo will not return to Jacksonville. They had a stout secondary. Any idea where Wyo might be going? A vet of this league. This will be his fourth team in his career.
Yeah, interesting choice not to come back. I thought they were building something very nice in Jacksonville, but sometimes your players see an opportunity to get a fresh start somewhere else and potentially build something great. If I had to take a guess on where he could possibly be headed, it's hard, man. Lone Star, after moving from Seattle, is building up quite from the ground up. A lot of new faces going to be seen there. I think that's going to be my guess on where he could potentially be headed.
Tom Rahman in the chat saying Wyo to Vancouver. Yeah, I don't think so. Not after that playoff game. But the transaction is in, and the breaking news is in, and Anthony Wyo is headed to Arizona. Eddie, thanks for staying quiet.
You got us, Eddie. You got us.
So, Wyo going to Arizona. Eddie, talk about this a little bit. You've always had a stout secondary, and what were your conversations like with Wyo over the last few hours?
Actually, to be honest with you, Cam, when the league was notified that he was retiring, I didn't even bother reaching out for a while. And I was actually looking in a different direction. We kind of got some last-minute late notice that Kanye decided to test free agency, and so we were left scrambling. And at some point, in my opinion, not to take a jab at anyone else, but the builds of the free safeties that I like to work with were limited. And so I was actually looking in a different direction, and a couple of guys turned us down. And then I reached out to Wyo again and said, "Hey, man, you sure?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm going to stay retired and just kick my feet up in the sand and just enjoy life." I'm like, okay. So we made another call to another individual, and due to some communication issues with this particular player, we thought we had a signing all done and set in place, and all of a sudden communication got dark, and just we were giving up and just ready to pursue the draft with the free safety. Wyo comes out of nowhere. "Hey, man, you still interested? Are you kidding? Of course we are." And we made the call and had a couple of conversations with him, about his rugged past, so to speak, with the league, and let him know, "Hey, man, we run a tight ship over here. We got a tight locker room. We got to keep it that way." He was all on board, and you have it. We had a star player, and I look forward to getting him on the field.
So that's the signing of Anthony Wyo, and we've got some. We've got actually a slideshow of players here that will be participating in free agency in some sort of way. We've received some sort of contract. We've seen Anthony Cece. We've seen Anthony Wyo, but there's some guys in here that could surprise some people. Hey, look, there's Aidan Davis. I thought he was retired too. Davis is going somewhere. We'll find that out throughout the day. Hey, there's Blake Craze. Anybody remember that name? He also retired, left Chicago, but he's back on the transaction log somewhere. Oh, look, Brian Craven. the half of the Bass brothers are going somewhere here, or at least we've gotten some contracts in. Who is that man, Cade?
I can't see who is it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's true. We don't have everybody connected today. That was you. It was you. But yeah, you could have assumed that. Thanks a lot, Cade. Cain Vasquez is a free agent and on the transaction log. Chuck Diesel is on the transaction log. We're rolling through the wire here today, and we'll find out all this news eventually as it all gets finalized. There's Dave Axis. Anybody following the Dave Axis saga on Twitter? He's been counting down to this day.
Yes, I have.
Eric, you had something to say?
No, I was chuckling a little bit because Dave Axis is always a good follow.
Brian Craven's out there. Who's that man? EJ DeQ. If you don't know who EJ DeQ is, he last played in season 12. He's on the transaction logs for the day. There's EK Vincent. He's also going to be a point of conversation this afternoon. Maybe at some point, even Arthur is on the board, and so many others going on there as well. I did some breakdowns of some teams around the league last night. Let's pull some of these team breakdowns up, and I want to get your thoughts. We have not talked about them just yet, but the Charleston Predators, they had 10 signings come through the log so far this season. On offense, T.D. Drew, Keith Swearingen, Buchanan, Simons, those three pillars crucial to their offense. Joshua, what did you think of Charleston's season last year? We've got the values and the players who have already re-signed on the screen right now.
I thought, being a defensive minded, I thought they had a great defense. I just felt like they needed a little bit more offense presence to get them further into the or make it to the postseason and push them further into the postseason. But overall, I really liked their defense. I think they end up having, was it one of the lowest allowed points, I believe, on defense.
Yeah.
But I really like them.
Yeah, the Predators have re-signed a bunch on defense already. Interesting transaction, though. Robert, I don't know if you noticed this. Jack Hoffman moving to linebacker, joining Jack Brown, and actually getting a thicker contract. So Charleston doing some reshuffling in that secondary. They brought back both their free safeties and Reese and Bates. So they got a lot of pieces, but I think that was one of the more underrated, interesting signings so far the offseason.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting moving guys around, trying to really get a fit that they could find to make the team better. As we kind of said, that defense was already really good last season. So just seeing what they can do to improve it in quick, manageable ways.
We get Improta's thoughts. Just we're half an hour into free agent frenzy. We've got more coming down the line. What are your thoughts on where we stand right now so far?
Very interesting, very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing who the Chicago Wildcats are bringing into town. It's not about the people leaving, Cam. It's about the people that are showing up.
Our next guy on the conversation list here is Jacob McCall. McCall, very interesting subject. He was a rookie drafted last year by Tulsa. Tulsa actually took him with the 31st pick. That was one of that was kind of in the middle of the second round. Had a really nice season for Tulsa. There was a bit of a dust up there at one point in a public chat with Tulsa and McCall but McCall had a very strong season for Tulsa, who had a lot of highlights, but he's moving on. He's leaving Tulsa and he's going somewhere else. Eric, did you happen to call any Tulsa games this season?
No, I did not.
Wow.
And I wish we did, because I always love watching Tulsa. They always have a good team. Like we pointed out before, Deacon Nickens is a gunslinger, so he's always entertaining to watch. And, it's, I do find that a bit surprising that, McCall would not want to kind of stick around and see how things kind of progress and see if he can become a more integral part of the offense. But, if he's having dust-ups in the chat, then, maybe it's time for greener pastures.
It was one. It's certainly but receivers are divas, aren't they?
Maybe, yes.
And linebackers sometimes, right?
Always.
Well,
Never the tight ends, though.
Never the tight ends. You're right. Well, the transaction's in, and Jacob McCall is leaving Tulsa and going to Arizona. Eddie got another one. McCall, 84.23, and the Scorpions are busy this morning. Eddie, you got McCall and Wild. That's going to be a chatty locker room, my friend.
It is, and I actually have to thank our GM Ashley Stryker, AJ, for this pick. She's been in contact with him all season. We actually attempted to draft him last season, but unfortunately, he got picked up before, like a few slots down before our pick, so we missed out on him. Ended up going in a different direction. But yeah, him and Ashley have a great rapport, and you're right, he is one of the chattiest individuals. So you won't have to worry about Arizona not being well represented on game day because he'll speak up for us. As you guys mentioned, he did have a little dust up with Tulsa towards the end, which is why he may have been released in the first place. I'm not sure. But we did have some lengthy conversations with him about how we do not tolerate such activity. And he sounded remorseful. And perhaps that second chance is what he needs because, you got receivers out there who made, mistakes in the past. But once they were cut, they realized that they're not untouchable, so to speak. So perhaps he takes a lesson learned from that, turns the page in his career, and get things turned around for him. We look forward to him producing on the field.
So we have the first signing in Fort Worth Toros history coming up. I start with Mikey and Proda. Who do you think the Fort Worth Toros have gotten?
Fort Worth Toros. Well, I know they're down there towards the southern part of the United States. We actually had a couple of guys on Chicago that are from that area. And if I was a guessing man, Cam, I would have to go with my good friend, Mickey McGuire. That would be the guy that I'd roll the dice on and see if I could win a little money and see if my prediction comes true.
Mickey McGuire. Interesting. How about let's throw it over to Joshua Williams. Who do you think they got?
I don't know. I'm thinking offense, so probably maybe a tight end.
A tight end, okay. By the way, Brian Lovelace making a great point in the chat. That's a high number for a slot man, talking about Jacob McCall. Think about the Hands brothers and McCall in Arizona with Ashley Jackson, with DJ Moses. That Scorpions offense is coming together. Okay, breaking news. The Fort Worth Toros' first signing across the wire in franchise history is cornerback Aidan Davis from the Denver Nightwings. Davis thought to be coming out of retirement, and look at that contract. 81 at corner. Let's get Robert Garrett's thoughts to start.
Yeah, the signing, it kind of came to a surprise for us, looking for different defensive backs that we could bring on. And, Lewis just reached out to Aidan. We knew that he was planning to retire. Just touched base with him. And, I guess he's from the Texas area, said that he grew up in the Fort Worth area. So he had a lot of interest and decided that he wanted to come out of retirement for us. And we're very excited for that.
I think a lot of people thought that Aidan's time might have been done, but he finds a home in Fort Worth. And who on this panel has been a part of anybody been a part of an expansion team on this panel? I don't think so.
I have.
You have, Cade.
I was first season in Vancouver.
Season 9. Do you remember what it was like, Andy, trying to build that expansion team, and your locker room slowly starting to fill up? That's what Fort Worth's going through today.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun at the time, man. I had a blast doing it. Andy worked his butt off putting it together, and I know these guys are doing the exact same thing. And it's been fun to kind of see it happen from an outside perspective at this moment. And it's just going to be fun to watch. Vancouver was able to make a run that year. We went to the playoffs, and the infamous Cade Stevens was in bounds game happened. And it was fun to be a part of, and I'm sure Fort Worth would like to just make a run and take the whole thing in the first year. And these guys, like I said, man, they're working their butt off to try to make it happen.
Houston says that Aidan lives in Katy, around the corner from him, and Kramer Jackman in the chat said, be aware he will leave after one season. Ouch.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Ooh.
Spiciness. The commissioner looks over to see if Denver and Fort Worth play this season. Now that building the TV schedule. Book
it, Cam.
Say again.
Week 2, book it.
Week 2, you're just filling it in for me now, aren't you?
There you go.
Why not week 1? What do you got week 1?
Well, Houston was talking some trash with another Texas team. I want to see them play week 1.
Houston talking trash? No.
We'll see what happens. The schedule release comes out on the 29th. It has been completed behind the scenes, and we're building that show, which should be a phenomenal show as we continue to build that. But today it's all about free agents. It's 11:40 Central Time here at SFL headquarters. We've still got an hour and 20 minutes to go on the Frenzy, and we've got another show coming up tonight to break down some of these big signings. So, what of the signings that have come across? What's been the biggest surprise to you? I'll kick it over to the panel as we set up our next breaking news on free agents.
Well, Cam, you gotta start with Gabriel Manning going to Tulsa. That offense is going to be pretty powerful. Corey Jones, Sanzo Robinson, Deacon Nickens. How do they get worse? That's a team that's going to be feared. The defenses better be ready. That's the most surprising for me.
Well, like a lot of others in the chat have said, that's a pretty expensive contract for a corner. So, good luck to Fort Worth.
I was gonna have to go with the Aidan contract. We'll see what he does. See if he puts up.
All right,
I think the Aidan contract, the Manning contact was definitely most surprising. I foresaw him going to a expansion team or one of the newer teams. Did not see that coming. I also did not see Aidan. They kept that really quiet. Congratulations to them, because everyone thought he's going to retire and try to come back as a receiver. And maybe they thought some sense into him. Man, you got a lot of value there, and you're on your way to the Hall of Fame. You keep producing like you are, and maybe he listened. And if you look at it, he's, like you said, he's close to home, so he's coming back to the Texas area. So maybe he wants to just come back home and play under warmer weather.
Our next player is Cain Vasquez. Played in Dallas/Seattle for the four of his first 5 seasons in the league. Also played in London. Seattle gets sold to Lone Star. He is not returning to that organization. He did have 4 picks last season, 6 a career high back in season 13. But Cain Vasquez is a Tulsa desperado, and apologies to our old teams. We don't have the 3D logos of them, but Tulsa takes over the contract of Cain Vasquez, a 73 value at strong safety. Eddie, you know strong safeties. How does that value stack up for you?
Pretty good value, considering, he's getting paid more than someone else I know is getting paid. But I keep that on the hush. I don't want anyone to get cut. But yeah, that's a pretty good value. He's another shocker too, because I assumed I believe I saw him on the Excel spreadsheet as being retired. So, that's a bit of a shocker too. I mean, I give these guys a lot of credit for keeping things quiet and getting these deals done under the table with little to no media press or access, so to speak.
This is the second signing already here in free agency for Tulsa. Robert, I feel like Tulsa is about to turn a corner. They got that media attention last season. There's a lot of players in the server that came in from Oklahoma because they saw that news story. Tulsa's getting some big free agents, getting a lot of press. This Desperado team could make some serious noise next year.
Yeah, I think they're setting up to be really good this upcoming season. Really didn't have a bad season necessarily this past season, but the record wouldn't show that. Just plagued with some bad plays and turnovers and things like that really set them up for the losses. So I think that they're getting things straightened out and ready to go for season 15.
All right, as we prepare our next signing, it is somebody in this room. That is one E.K. Vincent, whose contract has been finalized and processed. Just don't tell anybody what. If you tell them, Eric, I'm going to be so mad. But walk us through what it was like. It's been a while since you have been looking for a new home. What was it like? First off, was it your first time going through free agency, and how was it?
Well,
what was the experience like?
It was interesting because I don't think I've ever had this many people kind of reach out, via a DM or anything like that. And it was I texted Kate on the regular, like, this is insane. I've never experienced this before. But it was fun to talk to and visit with all the different teams and talk with them and see, who they were looking for, who they wanted to kind of fill those shoes and all that. And, unfortunately with Seattle being the way it was just kind of time for me to look for another team. So I'm very much looking forward to my new team, and this is going to be fun.
How many teams did you speak with?
Oh, wow. I spoke with a lot. I spoke with maybe, I want to say 8 or 9, possibly 10.
Wow. That's about half the league.
Yep. It seemed like every time I thought I wasn't going to get any more DM, because, the last time I did this, I got maybe 2 or 3, and, that was about it, which is fine. But yeah, no, I got so many different, my DM is just flooded right now with different threads from different teams trying to gauge, where I'm going, what I'm thinking, all that good stuff.
Well, only one chain of conversation now matters, because E.K. Vincent has left Seattle and is going to Fort Worth. The Fort Worth Toros get their second major signing of the afternoon at linebacker, 74.9. Eric, describe your decision to go to Fort Worth.
So, I was wanting to go to Fort Worth. I as soon as I heard the rumblings that Stephen Hacker might be getting his own team, that was what kind of set things off for me, because I love Hacker. And then I saw the ownership group that he was a part of. RG Jr. is a great GM. The front office, the team itself, where they're building, all of that good stuff. It just was too good for me to pass up. So I'm very much looking forward to getting down back into Texas and making a big impact on that defense.
Let me flip it over to Gage for your reactions.
EK, my buddy, met him in Dallas about a year ago. He's going, hey, they got a good thing going over there. They got good people running the team. You can't go wrong with Nacho. He comes in with experience, him and his buddy Lewis. So they got a solid foundation. It looks like they're putting some veteran pieces in place. So it's a good move. I like it.
Yeah, I was just talking behind the scenes with a free agent who said they're gonna announce their signing. Ooh, don't do that. Don't do that.
Do that.
The league has rules to enforce. Oh man, going down a rabbit hole with that one. Let's get our next signing in here. I think. We have our first signing of the Portland Fleet, and we will take a short break. We'll come back to free agency frenzy with Portland's first signing in their franchise history. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to SFL's Free Agent Frenzy of Season 15. We've got our next signing. It's Portland's first signing in franchise history. Mark Hurwitz, any want to take a stab at maybe a position or a team that's going to lose a player out of this?
Well, I'd like to think that maybe they're going quarterback, but then again, I think they have the top pick. So, if
Tough.
not, maybe an anchor defense.
Tough to say. What do you think, Mikey?
It's always the centerpiece of the team when you build around a quarterback. But for me, when you're beginning here, I think the defensive side of the ball is where this team's going to go. Maybe a linebacker. That's where I'd start to build my team and build the defense to try and get out on the field and being competitive as possible. You got to keep teams off the board before you can score. So that's the direction I think they're headed.
All right, well, let's go. The Portland Fleet's first signing is linebacker Mel Davis, sniped from Denver, as that's where Jacob came from. Mel Davis coming over to anchor, pun intended, sure, the Portland Fleet defense. Let's go back to Mark Hurwitz for his reaction.
I think it's a great decision, Cam. Great way to build out, start that franchise. Congratulations to Portland on your first signing.
So the Fleet.
Great.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, all set.
So the Fleet get one from Denver. So Denver loses Aidan Davis and Mel Davis off that defense. What's with the Davises out in Denver? Eddie, your reaction?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Perhaps them winning a championship in season 13 might have spoiled them, and they got upset saying, hey, what's going on here? I don't know. But Denver has always had a tight locker room. I don't discredit them for losing Aidan. He wants to go home and play for his hometown team in an area that's not far. He can practically walk to the stadium from his house. And, you got Mel Davis here. I'm not sure what his situation is, but Denver's rebounding. They got Jeremy calling plays again next season, and he's already promising playoffs. So I'm not worried about too much about them at all. I am kind of surprised at how much value that Mel got at linebacker, 81.15.
I'm sure you know this. What's a base gold, Eddie?
Is it 77?
Wow. So we're talking about a thick contract right there.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, them being an expansion franchise, they have money to burn. So we'll see how it goes.
Boy, we've got some interesting signings, man. You guys have no idea, man. It's good. We're just getting cooked up here. Let's check out some other rookies that might be that might be signing today. Kanye Rockefeller is a free agent. We saw his looks like to be replacement. Anthony Wiles signed earlier today. Who's that guy? Anybody know who that guy is for the Baltimore Crabs? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Cam, you're ahead of me on the video. I don't even see it yet.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
That's Kanye.
More Rivers is a free agent. So forgive us at home. We got a little bit of a delay on what everybody can see. We got a lot of analysts here, and oh goodness, Nathan Blake is out there in free agency now. We know that he's going to Louisiana, but we haven't heard about any Louisiana signings yet so far today. That might be a little bit of a surprise. Nicholas Warner played a season in Florida after he was in Denver. Well, he looks like he might be on the move. Raymond Jones III of Chicago is on the move, and Proto might have to say something about that. How about Rob Ems, kicker for Las Vegas? He's going somewhere else. So we've seen a couple of kicker reshufflings here in the first hour of free agency frenzy, and Robert Garrett Jr. We think we know where he's going too. On a scale of 1 to 10, how attractive is that player, Robert? That's out there. I'm talking about you.
I definitely a 10.
Yeah, I was
But,
testing your ego. I wanted to see
For
if you
for some reason, no teams reached out to me. I don't know why.
Oh well, yeah, sure you don't. I know why, but I can't say it on the air. And it's not just because you've signed somewhere or you're in some front office. It's just because you're rude, Robert.
Opinions. We all have them.
Robert and I have an interesting relationship behind the scenes on game day. It's quite fascinating. Eric, as we I do have it. Oh boy, let's jump right into this conversation. We don't know anything else except for who this player is that we're going to be talking about. Don't know where he's going just yet. Trying to finalize all of that right now. But Dave, no, he is not going to Portland. Forgive me. But Dave Axis, his contract is in and finalized. This has been one of the biggest stories in the offseason because Axis, I have not known Axis to be much of a talker. But since winning that championship, Axis is he's really kind of had conversations all across the league. He is signed somewhere. Let's start with where are we at here? Let's start with Joshua Williams. Where is Dave Axis going, and why did he leave in the first place?
I have no clue where he's going. Been trying to keep up with his post. He's been narrowing it down from 9 teams to, whatever his pick is. I just think he wants to venture out and the market. He won the championship as a rookie, and I think he wants to be a staple for one of the teams that picks him up.
Before we announce it, one last thought. Cade Stevens, we called the game. Dave Axis made a couple of big plays in that game as a rookie.
He sure did.
And
he sure did.
Who knew that would be the last time we saw him in a Swarm uniform, at least right now?
I didn't project it that way, especially now watching the game. I thought that Atlanta had a big building block for years and years to come, coming from him, Dave Axis there. And I don't know if maybe it was the potential loss of his quarterback, Marcus Dunhill, that gave him reason to want to potentially look elsewhere. But I have to imagine there's a great potential he's going somewhere new, maybe somewhere that needs some firepower, somewhere that's looking to build a big offense. And I wouldn't be too terribly surprised, to be honest with you, Cam, to see him go a couple of different places, right? I could see Lone Star. I could see Portland. I could also see Jacksonville. Tulsa's made a big splash so far. There's a potential there as well. So I know I instead of just picking one, I picked a few, but I think there's a lot of great possibilities there.
Garrison Blue in the chat says, Eddie is quiet. Look out.
He's definitely built up his frequent flyer miles, that's for sure.
Yes.
Well,
Diamond medallion.
Dave Axis, the decision is out, and Dave Axis is the next receiver for the Lone Star Glory. Axis signs a contract at a value of, forgive us. Our tech is not cooperating with us very well today. Dave Axis signs for a contract of $80.84, and I believe is the first offensive piece for the Lone Star Glory and this new squad being built up by Wally Herman and Brian Craven and Charles Doherty and that whole crew. Your thoughts from the panel? Let's see. The chat. Brian Loveless got it right. He guessed Lone Star. There was somebody else up there earlier that guessed it as well. Axis wanted to be on the show. We'll see if we get a DM to get his reactions. But Eddie, you were quiet, but he wasn't going to where you were going. Your thoughts on Lone Star getting Axis, the champion?
Again, like you guys said, it's hard for me to envision why a rookie receiver would want to leave a team that just won a championship. My only speculation is perhaps he wanted more touches, which is kind of hard to do when you got playmakers like Boo Chisholm, Sage Falco, BDG Hollywood and the likes over there. But hey, I mean, if anything, credit him to stepping out on faith and assuming he's gonna get a bigger role. My only question is he gonna be the number 1 receiver, the number 2 receiver? He's gonna play the slot? That is my only question. I just want to see where on the depth chart he falls.
Mark Hurwitz, your thoughts?
I love it for Dave. Dave and I have a pretty good relationship. I think he's betting on himself. Like was just said, there's a lot of offensive firepower in Atlanta. So, Dave going Lone Star, trying to get some more touches, what he's looking for, and great signing for Dave, and congratulations.
Just to make a note to free agents out there, because I'm getting a couple of DMs that make me a little nervous. You can't come on the show, announce where you want to go if you don't have a contract and it hasn't been processed by the league. Don't do that. Please don't do that. I have to enforce the rules on the book, and I don't want to void the contract, okay? So, just as a refresh, we're halfway through our morning show here in Free Agent Frenzy. We have announced on this show 10 free agents, 2 in Arizona, Anthony Weil and Jacob McCall, 2 in Tulsa, Cain Vasquez and Gabriel Manning, 2 in Fort Worth, E.K. Vincent and Aidan Davis. Those are the headlines, along with Gabriel Manning's 111 value going to Tulsa. That broke here earlier on the show. Let's go to Robert Garrett Jr. as a reset. We've seen 10 signings. We talked a little bit about the first batch earlier in the show, but a chance to take a deep breath, reset. How are you seeing the landscape develop around the league?
Yeah, I think it's laying out pretty well to set up a lot of competitive teams. Dave Access going to the Glory, really good receiver to start out their offense, and something that they can work around to have him utilized well. And then, seeing Fort Worth and Portland get their first couple players or player in Portland's side, it's exciting to see, how these 2 teams are approaching free agency and how they've been hitting things.
Our next breaking free agent signing, I have to get the thoughts. It's Sean Harrelson. Sean Harrelson has left St. Louis. He's going somewhere else. And I have to get the reaction from Mikey and Proda, because Sean Harrelson, more than any other, he blasted Chicago. I mean, he was so good in that playoff game against Chicago. St. Louis was not the better team that day. But wherever Sean Harrelson goes in Proda, would you prefer to not see him on the schedule?
Well, he certainly had his breakout game in the playoffs against us, and even though Chicago was the better team on the field that day, it certainly looked like Harrelson was the best wide receiver on the field that day. And I think that has a lot to do with the quarterback play. I think it has a big reason to do with it is probably the offensive coordinator and who's calling the plays. So if you're asking me, Cam, where I think Harrelson's ending up, I think he might be heading down to the Bayou.
Well, Louisiana is still empty on transactions because free agent taketh and giveth, because Sean Harrelson is going to Atlanta. 86.28.
Wow.
Sean Harrelson leaves St. Louis, goes to the Swarm to join Boo Chisholm and Siege Falco and that unit. Initial reaction, Eric Vincent.
Man, that's a surprise to me. Not necessarily where he's going, but he going to Atlanta there. He's probably going to end up being the slot receiver because you can't push out Boo or Siege out of those line or out of where they were at in the depth chart. But that's going to be a strong receiving core for the Swarm next season, as if they needed any more firepower. Good grief.
But who's going to throw to him?
Hey, listen, we talked
question.
earlier about Pickler as an option, and it's even more of a bargaining chip right now to say, hey, look at the 3 wide receivers that you have now with the Sean Harrelson signing. There's a really good opportunity that he may come to Atlanta, and that team's going to pick up right where they left off.
Now, that's a slot receiver spot at 86. We were talking earlier about Jacob McCall being in the slot at 84. So Eddie, how do you see that receiving core stacking up with the best in the league now with Harrelson coming on board?
Oh my goodness. EK took the words right out of my mouth. How do you not rate this team going into the season as having the number one wide receiving core? And don't forget the tight end either. You can't forget. Oh my goodness. This team is loaded. Whatever quarterback that they get, whether it be through the draft, free agency, or what have you, they're going to pick up. He's going to walk into a bag of riches, and it's going to have just weapons at his disposal. And when you try to double everyone, he's going to just hand the ball off to BDG Hollywood for 5-6 yards. Oh, my, this is just an all. But another thing about Sean Harrelson, as EK alluded to, he's coming in. I believe he was the number 2 receiver, if memory serves me correctly, in St. Louis. So for him to pick up where Dave Axis left off at and says, hey, I'm willing to take on the number 3 role. I'm willing to do that and be a team player and, moving down the depth chart because I want to win games. I want to probably win a championship and the starting duo that they already have and put him alongside him at the slot. Oh my goodness. Whatever quarterback, somewhere Marcus Dunhill is saying, I should have stayed on for one more season and went back to back possibly.
Well, this is really an interesting development because if you think about it, who threw to Sean Harrelson last year? Is this Atlanta's pitch? Is this part of their pitch to try to convince Pickler to come to Atlanta and play for the defending champion? Very interesting. While we're chewing on some of that information, we've got another panelist whose signing is official. This one is not too big of a secret. He is part of the front office there, but at least check that. Going to Fort Worth. Forgive me for the graphic error, but Robert Garrett Jr. going to Fort Worth to play tight end. You're in the front office there with the Toros. What has it been like building this team? Another free agent signing for Fort Worth. That's their third of the day, and that's more than any team.
Yeah, it's been a blast, going through free agency and all these things. Just trying to find guys that might be interested in starting over, really. And a lot of question marks going into that. So being able to talk to these guys and try to figure out how to word things to pitch to them correctly. It's been stressful, but a whole lot of fun.
I tell you what, Damon Simeon's winning the chat today. He posted, I just may sell my team and change my position to quarterback and play for Atlanta. That's a lot.
I wouldn't blame him.
That's a lot to get done, Damon, in just a few days. So I think
we'll call him Kevin Durant before too long.
And Broda, what do you think about what Fort Worth is building? They've got EK, Vincent, Robert Garrett Jr., 2 panelists here. They also were able to convince Aidan Davis to come out of retirement. So not any splashy like running back, quarterback, receiver, type signings, but they're building the meat here.
Yeah, I don't think there's any substitution for experience, and that's certainly what they're gaining with Robert Garrett Jr. He's got a nice contract at 85.48. Certainly they got EK Vincent, who adds a lot of personality, a lot of positivity to their locker room, has a great player on the field. And there are no words for Aidan Davis. He always seems like he's in the mix when he has to step up in the secondary. So I like what these teams are doing. It's certainly a different approach. It's certainly interesting to see how the expansion teams build versus the established teams who have that history, who have that tradition. But I like what Fort Worth, I like what Hacker's doing. And if they keep it going, they're going to be a team to reckon with this season.
This also not a big surprise. He is on the staff of this Texas squad, but the signing is in and finalized. The Bash brother, or at least one of them, Brian Craven at linebacker, going to Lone Star, leaving Vancouver, part of the staff there. He's also coaching in the minor league, and a big piece of what Lone Star's trying to build. They signed Jukin Rukin from the Tyrants days earlier or late last week. Dave Axis went there earlier. Now Brian Craven. These are some big names going to the glory. They now have 3 players in the can, and we go to Joshua Williams for his initial thoughts.
This is a good pickup for the Bass brothers. Hopefully they'll fill out the defense well, and then they should be able to compete. I like them.
Eddie? Eddie?
Sorry, I had you muted there.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's a good. Once again, Lone Star. I like the value too as well. You know, he's a solid player. He's been one of my linebackers I like to watch. You know, when I'm watching other teams, I tend to look how they play on defense and how they use them, and they've used them quite well over there in Vancouver. So it's be interesting to see how they use them over here with his new team. So good luck in Lone Star, and we'll see how it plays out. But I like the value.
I think that's Brian Craven. Had the wrong player up there. My apologies. Kevin Brackett, I don't think he's going anywhere. But Brian Craven going to Lone Star from Vancouver, and the Glory get another player. You won't want to go anywhere. Robert Redford signing is in. It's over 100, and we find out where he goes next. Free agent frenzy continues. We're back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to the SFL's Free Agent Frenzy Show. I'm SFL Commissioner Cameron Irvine, and we're just getting back to some of these free agent signings here. We teased you at the break that Robert Redford has a new home. Our panel off air talked about it, discussed it, and they were all right. Robert Redford is going to Vancouver. 102.63. Pseudo Nakai out. Robert Redford in. And Redford, who's played for Sioux Falls and Vegas, continues his West Coast swing. And it was interesting. Louisiana made a big splash early in free agency or on social media when they talked about how Robert Redford had come for a visit. ends up not signing with Louisiana, ends up going to Vancouver instead. Mark Hurwitz, your initial thoughts?
Well, it's the perfect place, like we all said. Replacing Pseudo, tough job, but I think Robert can handle it. And, I think Andy, he lost a couple of players, but he's going to reload. So I think this is really, really good for both the player. Congratulations.
All right, let's go over to Cade Stevens. What do you think? You've called plenty of Robert Redford action on the field.
Great pickup. I mean, I can't stress that enough. The loss of Pseudo Nakai, obviously not something that Vancouver wanted to see after such a successful season from him last year. And after building to the point to get where they are, it was an integral part of the offense last year. Robert Redford, I believe, has the ability to step right into that running back spot in Vancouver and produce very highly. I don't think that they're gonna miss much. He's got big shoes to fill, but a big opportunity to do it. I think Robert Redford very capable of stepping in and replacing Pseudo Nakai in Vancouver. Don't count them out. Don't think they'll regress. Reload was the word that was used. I very much think that.
Improda Chicago's got some tricks up their sleeve that we haven't heard from yet. Chicago's been a little quiet so far today, but how excited are you for all of that to come out with what the Wildcats been cooking behind the scenes?
Cam, I could not be more fired up to hear the announcements that the Chicago Wildcats are going to make to strengthen their team. We've lost some really valuable players, but I think what we're bringing in is going to be even better. And what I've told these guys are great teams don't hire skilled players and motivate them. We bring in players that are already motivated and we inspire them. And I'm just so excited to hear you make the announcement when the Wildcats are on the board.
Raymond Jones III is another Wildcat here. His signing his in. We talked about Anthony CC at the top of the show. Chicago's been a little quiet since. Raymond Jones III has decided to go elsewhere. Do you know where he's headed, Mikey?
I really don't. That's one that's really stifled me. I know that it was a mutual agreement between ownership and Raymond. I have nothing but love for Raymond Jones. He's such a great guy. He's such a great player. I'm excited to see where he heads. I know he's from the Carolinas. My guess might be that he might go to an expansion team. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity there. But if he ended up with the Carolina Skyhawks, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Well, Raymond Jones III, an undrafted rookie free agent, played in Chicago, was a part of that defensive front, and he's going to a place that is a little known for defensive linemen, so you can't blame him. Raymond Jones III is going to Florida. Defensive tackle value at 60 and change. Eddie, your initial thoughts to the Storm getting another star defensive lineman?
Knowing Max like I know him, he has that philosophy that I have. Offense, don't screw it up. Defense, win the game. And he and I, in terms of limiting the quarterback, he likes to keep that quarterback back there on his feet and aware of his surroundings at all times, so to speak, if you know what I mean. And he likes that pressure. He doesn't like him back there, just sitting back there comfortable with all day to throw. So I'm not surprised at this pick at all. It's a good pickup for him, in fact. I like it.
Let's head over to let's go to Robert Garrett Jr. Florida's. What are your thoughts on Florida? They had a tough season, man. It's been crazy. Mason Kirby, he crushed him with the game-winning touchdown and stunned the dynasty. And Florida just has not been the same since. This will help.
Yeah, they just barely missed the playoffs last season, and kind of like Eddie touched on, I think with all the defensive players and especially the defensive linemen that they have, keeping a quarterback uncomfortable and really judging what he's doing is going to be big for them. More turnovers they can create, the more points they can put up, and they can try to get back to the dynasty that they know and love in Florida.
Devon is on some kind of something this morning. He said, offense wins games, Eddie. Defense only helps out. He's
no comment.
In all caps, of course, as we know is Damon Simeon's signature in the chat. While we get our set up with our next transaction, we have not talked about Carolina much this afternoon, and mostly because Carolina has brought a lot of their team back. Sully Richardson, Logan Jack got a big deal. Shea Carroll, Harish Prasad has not been announced, but we're guessing that his contract is just being tweaked. They brought Forrest Stark back. They've got Cologne and Hall on the line. They got Doty and Joseph back at corners. Hatley at safety. Colston at safety. This Carolina team reloading. And anybody have any thoughts on what Carolina's done so far this offseason that's stood out?
Carolina's looking a lot like the way the Gladiators were looking this past season. They're looking like they're right at that cusp, just ready to just hit over the hill. They're ready to dominate, especially with the amount of talent that they have. Sully Richardson is coming to his own. Logan Jack, already a big-time running back. That offense is looking at that defense is insane. A very underrated defense with Cologne and Hall, Forrest Stark. I mean, all those guys, they're all great defenders. So I got to say that Carolina might be the St. Louis of next season.
I think Eric's right. I really do. I think that they were just a couple of plays away from winning a couple more games and potentially being in the playoffs, making some noise. And I think they've done good things and put themselves in a position to where I think that they get in, and I think that they get in easily in this coming season here. I foresee Carolina being a force to be reckoned with.
St. Louis having a tough offseason. This could sting a little bit. Carolina, we spoke at as being maybe, up on that trend of St. Louis and what they were able to accomplish this past season. Oh, boy. St. Louis losing Even Arthur, who set an SFL record for pick sixes in a game, and he is going to Louisiana. The Louisiana Revolution make a splash here in their first signing of free agency. Even Arthur out the door to Louisiana. I'm going to start with Mark Hurwitz's thoughts on the Revolution getting another tremendous player. They got Reggie Streeter last week, which was a huge kind of eye-opening signing to bring him back because it looked like Streeter was out the door, and now they sign Arthur.
Yeah, Cam, I'm interested to see how they fill out the rest of that roster. There's a lot of money being thrown around Louisiana right now. I think it's going to come down to how they balance of that. What a great sign.
What do you think, Joshua? You guys played St. Louis's defense in the regular season, and they held you down. One of the best. They didn't win the game, but that was a dogfight.
Their defense was, for some reason, it's always good. It's one of those tough defenses that every time we played them, they've been hard to go against. But I think it's a good move. It's really good.
So Arthur goes to Louisiana. The Revolution are not done. They're the next signing across the transaction wire is also going to Louisiana. And anybody wanna take a stab at who might be next wearing blue and green?
That's a hard stab to make, Cam. No,
yeah, that's a tough one.
There's only 440 players in the league. I'm sure you can figure it out.
That's a tough one, Cam. That's a tough one. I will say real quick on Even Arthur, if you don't mind me saying, as opposed to getting that man a T-bone steak down in Louisiana, they're going to have to get that man a bowl of crawfish etouffee, if I say so myself.
He got a hefty contract
calls
for
of the season.
cornerback, that's for certain.
Yes.
That he did.
What game was that that you called? That was one of the better sound bites of the season, I thought.
I believe that was the Not the final. It was either the final game of the season or the game before that for St. Louis. I believe they had officially been eliminated at that point.
Yeah, I think it was the Skyhawks game.
No. Yeah, it was the Skyhawks game. Yep,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Eric.
All right, let's take a look. The Louisiana Revolution's next signing is Chuck Diesel, linebacker. There's another thick linebacker contract, $82.85. Leaves St. Louis, goes to Louisiana. Gerald's pulling all the stops, getting the band back together from his days in St. Louis and London. And the Revolution are busy now here in the second hour. Improda, your first thoughts?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think defense is where you need to build the team, and the middle of the field needs to be
That's
protected,
right.
or you're going to get killed.
That's
and
right.
Now, I think with what the Revolution are doing, building their defense with Arthur, building their defense with Chuck Diesel, they're bringing in the experience. They're bringing in Gerald's guys, and I like what Gerald's doing down there. He's starting to put the pieces together.
Gerald is Jerry Jones.
Is he?
He's spending a lot.
Yeah, he is opening up the vault, so to speak.
Yes, he has.
He's giving out some big money contracts. I'm assuming he's going to make up for it on the back end by signing some offensive linemen at some point, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Money talks.
That it does.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see on that. Robert, there's 4 teams. You got Portland, Louisiana, Lone Star, and Fort Worth. It's really remarkable in the SFL this offseason just how much roster movement there is because of all those new pieces and new leadership. And what is maybe the most interesting thing that you've seen watching the other 3 teams operate just today and since all the announcements came down with you helping run Fort Worth?
I mean, I think the most interesting thing that I've seen so far was Louisiana getting Reggie Streeter to come back out of retirement. Obviously retired right at the end of this past season. And I just didn't see it happening. If he came back, I didn't think it would be so soon, but able to pull the London card from Gerald and say, hey, like, we had a good thing then. Why not try it again? So it's going to be super interesting to see what he does with Streeter.
Hey, kickers are people too, and this kicker from Seattle, known to be maybe a little bit on the hefty side, Whistle Jones, is just another tyrant that is not leaving the league, is remaining in the league, and not drinking the Kool-Aid. And Whistle Jones is going somewhere else. And anybody have any idea who might want a kicker out there?
I'm hoping it's Fort Worth.
I mean, in all honesty, who doesn't want a kicker out there? Come on.
I say we'll take it. Maybe Chicago. Who knows?
Well, Whistle Jones wants the smoke. Whistle Jones going to Carolina to take over for Wally Herman, who left and now is in Lone Star. So Carolina gets their new kicker, and it's Whistle Jones. Impressions around the panel?
Well, Carolina wants to make up for losing that valuable kicker with another veteran kicker. And, Whistle was a great player for Seattle, been there for a minute. And with the relocation of their franchise, he took his talent to the East Coast, so to speak. He's moving practically across the country from one coast to the next. And Carolina, as you guys spoke about earlier, has a solid defense. And those field goal attempts could be the difference between winning and losing games. So, as someone else alluded to earlier, if they can just find a way to get that offense turned around and just produce a few more points, as you guys stated, they could be the St. Louis of the league next season.
Harish says in the chat, bring that thickness this way. All about thickness in Proto. What's Gerald's nickname on the defensive front there in Chicago?
The booty jiggle. If you've ever noticed, when that big man gets a sack, he loves to dance, and you can see the booty jiggle when he's happy about it. So that's how we nicknamed him, and he loves it.
Can't say that I've been watching that.
This next signing just coming through the wire here, just in the last 15 seconds or so, this signing could be a shocker. This is another Atlanta Swarm player out in free agency, and the team that gets him has been pretty quiet today. That's cornerback Jack Napier, and he's going to Mexico City.
Ooh.
Oh.
So Mexico City gets a corner. I think Fran Agawa retired. I think he was an international player, had some trouble with the, what they call it, the conversion rate to American dollars and such. But this is huge because Mexico City doesn't have to rebuild at that position, and we know how important the corners are to Ramos's defense. Go over to Eddie to get your thoughts on this big secondary signing.
Jack is going from one classy organization to another. As soon as he hit the free agent market, I can just see Ramos now picking up the phone and making that long distance call to Atlanta to acquire by his services. And you're right, the exchange rate was probably just a bit too much for Fran, and he got a quality player in Jack Napier.
What's a team, while we wait on the wire to resume here, what's a team that's been a little quiet that you're wondering what may be going on over there? Start with Mark Hurwitz. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Don't think I've heard Queen City at all today.
It's a good one.
And, also there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat from Houston. So I'd like to see what's going on down there.
Those are both good selections. Vincent, you got somebody else that's on your mind?
Those were the two that were kind of sticking out at me. Mexico City was another one as well, because they have a couple holes there. I know they like to keep that same group intact. Chicago was another one that I was kind of thinking, and Mikey might have some info on this, but Mexico City and Chicago were the other two teams I was kind of thinking might be a little quiet and might be thinking about reloading a little bit this year, fill in those spots.
Sioux Falls.
I don't know nothing.
Jack Napier in the chat saying out of the 7 teams that reached out, that one felt the best. So he certainly had a lot of suitors. And mentioned Sioux Falls. And in my DMs here, I see Queen City involvement rustling around. So the Corsairs are putting something together. But the Sioux Falls Sparrows are mentioned. Did you know, it might have been kind of flying under the radar, Sioux Falls has 15 signings that leads the league. They brought back 15 players. A.J. Levy, Al Dillapre Sr., Alex Parker, Colin Hart, Gunnar Lewis, James Kelly, Jay Ringgold, Jalen Wells, John Barnhart, Jonathan Camp, Julian Tyree, Maxwell Falk, Nick Fargo, Noe Terrasas, and Terrell Davis. That is probably why we haven't heard much of them today, because they quietly, as Sioux Falls has always done behind the scenes, they've built it all back up again, and it really does feel like Sioux Falls probably thinks, well, that was a pretty great season. Let's run that back. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, my first season in the league, I was part of that locker room, and it's just a really tight-knit locker room. Everybody's pretty close to each other, and so it just makes sense that they had such good retention, that they were able to keep everybody around, because the team just gets along and they all do their own thing together. And so it's good work by A.J. Levy and Jason, the owner, to do what they've done.
Man, if Queen City pulls that deal together, oh boy, it's going to rock. It's going to rock some, it's going to rock some wires. That's for sure. I know I'm teasing everybody, and I can't tell you about anything specific, but that is an interesting development behind the scenes. It's 12:35 here at SFL headquarters, 1:35 on the East Coast. We got about 25 minutes left in the first window of our free agency live show. 144 people watching right now, and I have to flip it over to Eddie, because I want to get your thoughts on the fact that 144 people are now watching into the last quarter of a 2-hour free agency live show, when I mean we would have been pinching ourselves at these numbers just a couple of years ago. Any reaction to just this bustling community and all this excitement here today?
Cam, if anything, it just highlights the hard work that the league has done collectively, from yourself down to league staff, these owners, players. We all are part of this puzzle that make it all go. And this product that we continue to roll out season in and season out, with graphics and broadcasting and being on television. I remember back in the days where I can recall 6 people watching the game when I was with the Baltimore Crabs way back in season 5. And I was like, I just remember saying to myself, wow, 6 people. What are we doing here? But we persevered, we hung on, kept the ship afloat, and now look at us here in the middle of a work day. Despite everything that's going on, we have 144 people watching it. Not even a game, but just free agency. And it just speaks volumes on where this league is headed. I mean, and as I said in my Hall of Fame speech, Cam, we are not done. We are just tipping the iceberg of where this league can go. And I look forward to us reaching even bigger heights next season.
Harish Prasad saying Carolina's at 13 signings, Houston's at 14, Florida's at 14. So a lot of teams have done some great build up, and Michael Torillo posts in the chat, more people are here right now than have watched some of the championship games. Eric Vincent, do you remember you called a playoff game, I don't know, it was like season 8 or something? You remember how many viewers were watching that game? I don't remember what the viewership was like back then.
No, I know that we were happy to have 40 to 50 people watching at any given time. But Eddie's right. Like the regular season games, shoot, we had 10 to 12 people maybe kind of show up and watch. Maybe we'll get lucky in a big time matchup. We'll get 20 to 25. The fact that we've got so many people watching and now on TV, and just this right now, 144 people still strong watching free agency. Not even a game, not a game, but free agency. This is insane. I love this, and Eddie is 100% correct. This is only the tip of the iceberg going forward. I expect big things going forward for this league, and that's why I'm still here. That's why I'm still a part of it.
This is not going to come as a surprise to many, but Louisiana is cooking with fire now here in the second hour of the show. Blake Craze out of retirement. It's Gerald's son, and he leaves Chicago to go to Louisiana, a $77.87 linebacker value contract, and that is now the third signing for the Revolution. They also got Chuck Diesel earlier today, so it's Diesel and Craze, the linebacking duo for the Louisiana Revolution here as that defense starts to come together. Joshua Williams, your thoughts on the signing?
It's another great pickup. They're filling out the defense. Once you get that strong defense base, you can start to look elsewhere on the offense and start to build it up. But I think they're starting off pretty strong.
Anybody seen these Revolution uniforms? I have to admit, when they first showed them off to me and the branding started to come together, I thought, I don't know, man, but godly, they've grown on me. Has anybody seen their kits yet?
They look good.
Yeah,
they look good.
Yeah, they come on display on their social media, quite often.
And Proto, what do you think about how Louisiana's building this? Of course, Blake didn't play too long on the squad, and you guys found Buddy Blaze there late in the season, and he was just awesome. But how do you see Louisiana coming together right now?
I like it. I like it a lot. As you mentioned, with Diesel and Craze, they're solidifying the middle of the field. It's certainly a natural fit for Blake to go over with his dad, Gerald, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. Don't take these expansion teams lightly. They're going to be competitive, and if you're not paying attention, you might be able to, come out of that stadium with a loss if you're not prepared. So I like what Gerald's doing, and I like their uniforms too, Cam. It's not about how you play; it's how you look.
Monica, not. By the way, Mikey, I read your article on your rookie season.
Thank you.
And it was well written. And
Thank you.
I understand why you say it's how you look, not how you play, because after reading your stat line.
You don't want to look. I didn't even know I had a stat line.
It was in the story. I thought, wow, no wonder why he went to Shan and said, "Hey, get me out of here."
Yeah, well, he hits me up at 5:00 in the morning when I'm half asleep, and he says, "I'm going to sign you at this number," and I can barely hear him. So I said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And then the next thing I know, I'm doing. He's got me in the front off pushing papers.
I have never related to you and your life more than that line of that story about Shan Varner waking me up.
Oh man.
I told him a few days ago, if you wake me up one more time, I'm gonna, he said something to the effect of, just like he said to you, he said, "Hey man, you got to get up and get to work. Come on, we got a lot of stuff to do."
There's a lot of great people in the SFL, Cam. There's a lot of top-notch people that I really have made some strong friendships with, but Shan Varner is just world class. And that's why I love Chicago so much. He's the big reason why. He's a hard worker. I give him a lot of credit. And, the old adage is you'd run through a brick wall for somebody. Shan Varner's definitely the guy.
Manakanaka in the chat asking, what did I miss? Oy, I don't even know how to answer that. 19 signings have come across that we've announced. Our 20th is getting prepped behind the scenes right now. In my mind anyway, and with that being said, the 19 signings, a reset to a question I asked earlier to the panel as we're coming down on the last 18 minutes or so of the early show. What is the splashiest signing? What's the signing you're most excited about? What's the most interesting signing? We'll go left to right, start with Improda.
I think it's a great signing. When you're adding quality to your team, you can never go wrong. I think it's a great start, and again, another team headed in the right direction.
Well, which one specifically has piqued your interest the most today? Still.
Well, again, I think it goes back to Manning right now. It looks like he's got the best free agent or the highest paid free agent contract. I'm starting to have some thoughts about where to start and prepare if you're a defensive coordinator to defend against that attack that Tulsa has. Sonzo Robinson is one of the top 10 running backs in the league. Now with Corey Jones and Manning, that's an offense to be reckoned with.
We'll get everybody else's thoughts on their most exciting signing of the day, and who knows, maybe it'll come in the last 15 minutes of the show. For now, we go to another Bash brother who is headed to Texas. Doug Day joins Brian Craven in Lone Star. This, again, not a huge surprise, but another linebacker contract over 80. What do you make of all these linebackers over 80, Robert? Are we finally trending back in a direction where people are looking at front sevens and saying, hey, these linebackers can be pretty valuable on these stout running backs?
Yeah, I think that we are getting that way just because, now that people are coming into the league as offensive linemen and there's more interest in that position, you got to work harder to get pressure on the quarterback, and teams realize that. So they're looking to add value to their linebackers, add value to their defensive line, and really build up on that.
Eddie, you're a defensive guy. Our linebackers trending up finally. It's been 3 or 4 years. I was actually talking with a linebacker a couple of seasons ago in free agency, and he was saying, look, man, every time I go somewhere, they ask if I can take a cut. They say they're not going to pay me that type of value. What's the deal? And I said, look, man, this is the Simulation Football League. If linebackers are trending down, there's just not a lot of teams giving a lot of big money to linebackers. It doesn't feel that way today.
Cam, I'll tell you what, if that happens to him again, one of these days I'm gonna lose BJ Lovelace. He's gonna become an owner somewhere or something like that. Maybe he may even get promoted to the league office. Who knows? But I love the guy. And if I ever lose him, tell him to call me up because I value linebackers wholeheartedly. I believe they're undervalued, underappreciated, and disrespected for far too long. When you got tailbacks in this game like Pseudo Nakai averaging over 7 yards a carry, and then you got guys like Robert Redford averaging over 6 yards a carry. Someone has got to bring those guys down. You can't rely on the defensive line to do it because they're trying to hold up blockers and preventing those guys from getting to those linebackers. So you need playmakers out there, and the only way to slow those guys down is with quality players like BJ Lovelace and Joey Tropicana. Pay those people. They're well worth it.
Coming up next, one of the most dynamic receivers in the SFL last season, Sarin Storm, is leaving London. Where's he going? Find out in 2 minutes. The SFL's free agent frenzy continues in a moment. Welcome back to SFL Free Agent Frenzy here live on the SFL's YouTube channel. We teased you with Sarin Storm signing a contract with a new team, and that is yet another get for the Louisiana Revolution. A value of 89.91. Sarin Storm, the dynamic rookie, leaving London, going to Louisiana. That means the offense has Sarin Storm, Reggie Streeter, among others, as Johnny Pickler once again gets a call on his phone and says, hey, look who we just signed. Wouldn't you like to come here and toss the rock around? Let's get the panel's thoughts on Sarin Storm going to Louisiana. We start with Robert Garrett.
Yeah, I thought it made sense personally for Sarin Storm to go to Louisiana, just because he's a really good setup for a speedy, quick receiver, somebody that Gerald can look at and really use in multiple ways. You've seen him used in a lot of crossing routes and things like that in London, and it worked. So I think they go back to that, try to figure that out with Sarin Storm as kind of one of their higher guys.
Adam Wiseman says Damn, how much cap does Louisiana have left? Louisiana been shelling out the contracts today. Let's go to Mark Hurwitz. His thoughts on Sarin Storm. You joined. Did you join, Mark, before the regular season ended? Have you seen this guy play?
Yeah, actually I have. I jumped week 12, I think. So, I agree. Definitely a setup person. Maybe that's the speed. They are building a heck of a team down there. Again, I'm going to start calling Jerry Jones. Way it's going to be, man. That's your nickname, but with, Reader and Storm. I think that offense certainly coming around, and it would have been nice to see Storm end up in Florida, but I guess.
Yeah, we were talking about that during the break, and something else I brought up just prior to, we were talking about coaching, and we got the SFL minor league coming up tomorrow, 4 more games, another quadruple header starting at 2 Eastern, so don't miss that. But oh, well, that's too bad. Mark, give me give me that comment again. I apologize.
Oh, sure, not a problem. So I think it was a great pickup by Louisiana. I am going to call Jerry Jones from now on. That's just going to happen. That's the way it is with all these contracts. We'll see how that goes. But with Streeter and Storm, offense is coming around. Like to see who's going to be throwing the rock to them. Would have been nice to see Storm go to Florida. Guess we'll have to wait for.
So from one star receiver to another. This no surprise, but over 100 value. Stephen Hacker is headed to Fort Worth. A 101.61 value. The contract is in, and Queen City loses a major target on offense. The Corsairs making the semifinals, had a big run. It felt like the Corsairs of old, but Hacker goes to Fort Worth, joins his new team, and will be out of the snow for the foreseeable future. Eddie Gage, no shocker here, but just goes to show you how Fort Worth is building this team, and they're gonna have a lot of weapons by the end of this.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Stephen Hacker, he played the Z position for Queen City, which is amazing in itself because it seemed like he got the bulk of the big plays downfield for touchdowns. We played him twice, and I can tell you right now, the guy's a headache. He's a handful to guard. I put together multiple coverages trying to cover the guy, and it's just impossible to try and contain him without being, too irresponsible and taking too much pressure off of other guys to make plays. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great pickup. My question is, he has good value, so is he going to be their number 1 or number 2 receiver? I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say. Be interesting. The logo, Chris Curtis, stayed in Queen City, so won't be following Hacker to Fort Worth. So be interesting to see who joins Stephen Hacker in Fort Worth. And I think I know the way we're going to end the show. Just got a bombshell of a signing that came in, and looking forward to announcing that. Let's get back to the panel's thoughts about the favorite signing of the day, or maybe the most interesting signing of the day. Let's go to Eric Vincent.
Well, obviously, I'm happy to be in Fort Worth, so we'll go with favorite signing of the day. But as far as the rest of the free agency goes, Rob Redford going to Vancouver, that's a great signing for in my opinion there. Swapping out Suter Nakai with another big time running back in Robert Redford, a shorter, slimmer build, but still plenty of speed and can make those big plays like Sudo did. So that's a great signing in my opinion.
Ryan F. says, I feel like these new signings show is like 3 teams. Oh, you haven't been watching too much of the time. Why don't you rewind that back? Why don't you just go back and see all the teams we've been talking about? Hey, here's
back it up now, Terry.
Now, I will say, this team in the last 49 minutes has been featured quite a bit. This, again, not a surprise signing here. Nathan Blake has finalized his contract at free safety, so Louisiana gets yet another. That makes 5 Revolution signings in the past about 45 minutes or so. That adds to Reggie Streeter, Rolliman Hood, and Tank Bennett. Don't forget Tank Bennett re-signed. He's led the league in tackles 2 seasons in a row, and he'll be paired with Nathan Blake and Rolliman Hood in that secondary. Chuck Diesel and even Arthur as well. So that defense is really shaping up for the Louisiana Revolution. But we do have one final signing coming in, and it's a big one. Anybody want to take a stab? We've got some big players still out there. Anyone want to take a stab at what this big signing might be?
Bring it to Chicago, Cam.
You don't care who it is. You just want it to come to Chicago.
Well, we certainly care about who it is, but I want someone big to come to Chicago.
Hey, Kim, I'll take a stab at it.
All right.
How about where's Dezzer Pal going?
Oh,
Really? Dezzer Pal,
Wide
huh?
receiver.
Where do you think he's going?
I don't know. I mean, Louisiana spent a lot of money on defense, but word to the grapevine was these are ones that go to a veteran team, so I'll just take that off the board. Perhaps he goes to Florida if he takes a bit of a pay cut.
how about Queen City though?
Queen City.
Queen City is
Bingo.
that's another
Vincent.
one.
That'd be the
He gave
choice.
Vincent so much money he doesn't even know it.
Guess who just replaced the number 1 receiver from last year? Dezzer Pal.
Ah,
There you go.
yes.
From New Orleans to Queen City, Dezzer Pal has a new home, and the Corsairs breathe a sigh of relief after losing Hacker this offseason, and they get he is one of my favorite players to watch in the league because the guy I don't know how he gets so open all the time. He seems open all the time.
Cheating.
What do y'all think about the Powell signing? I'll start with Eddie.
Great pickup. I mean, they lost a great player. Stephen Hacker as I alluded to earlier, was a playmaker for them all season. It started week 1. He was productive from the moment the bell rung to start the season, and they got a suitable replacement. If not, I won't say a better replacement, but oh my goodness, there is. I don't think there'll be any drop off whatsoever. Queen City hit the jackpot with this signing. It's one of the better ones of the free agency signing period, and wow, they lost a great player, but they picked up a great player as a replacement, and I couldn't be happier for him. That's a great signing for Queen City.
Joshua Williams, what do you think about Powell leaving New Orleans? You guys have had plenty of bouts with him over the last few seasons.
Sir, we have. He's a lot to handle, and I think that is a great pickup for I think fit in right into place, and they'll pick up where they left off and just keep airing the ball out. They have a room to spare for the offense, so it's going to be interesting.
Joshua, what's your standout signing of the afternoon? 24 signings we got through here in the first free agency period. What's the one you're going to remember?
Mine was Reggie Streeter. Thought he was going to leave it as it is and just watch it from the outside, but I guess he said I still have some left in the tank. Back to prove the point.
Yeah, interesting that a couple of big weapons from New Orleans stay in the league but go to other teams. And Queen City and Louisiana got a pair of good ones. Eddie, your final thoughts to this crazy first couple of hours of free agency and all the signings we were able to get to?
It's one of my most favorite days of the SFL. This, other than the regular season, just seeing where all these free agents go. To me, it may not be a sexy pick as far as all the top guys, but to me, Atlanta landing Sean Harrelson is big. They lost a rookie in Dave Axis, and despite him wanting to leave, they were sad to see him go, but they picked up a great playmaker who's going to be able to get open. Keep in mind, he's used to playing the Z. He's the number 2 receiver in St. Louis, if I recall. Now he's going to be a slot. You think he's going to have a problem getting open? Not at all. Atlanta if they can shore up this quarterback position, I would not be surprised to see them putting up 30 points a game routinely, unless he's playing us, of course. But otherwise, this offense is going to be making some moves next season. Oh, my goodness. And you try to double up everyone. As I said earlier, you just hand off to BDG Hollywood, get you a quick 5 yards, and wow, this offense is going to be scary next season.
It's going to be fun to watch.
The panel and the league staff is hungry. We've been working all morning to bring you this show, and it was an awesome and fun time. Don't forget that the second part of our free agency special today will be from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Some of this panel will be back. We'll have a couple new faces as well. 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern tonight, 8 to 10 p.m. Central tonight. We'll have more signings that come through the afternoon and that come through live during the free agency show as people get home from work and start to sit down at their computer and say, all right, let's get some more of these guys signed, and we'll be tracking it all for you throughout the day, throughout the evening. This was a lot of fun. If you have not been announced yet, just sit tight. Your time is coming as the league processes through everything behind the scenes. Now over 200 players down, just a little over 200 to go, and maybe even less than that as the SFL continues to build its rosters back up for its 15th anniversary season, which starts in July. For all of our panel, our wonderful panel, for Andy Hamilton behind the scenes and signing graphics, for Marcus Dunhill, Director of Player Personnel, Andrew Ristelli helping everybody out as usual. I am SFL Commissioner Cameron Irvine. What a start. This is SFL Free Agency, and it's a frenzy. Stay safe out there. You want to tell them to drive home safely, Eddie?
Thanks for coming. Good night. Drive home safely, everyone.
Happy Taco Tuesday.